5 Live Formula One.
So the sun sets on the final qualifying session of the year. Welcome to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix paddock. Harry Benjamin and Jolyon Palmer are here with me, and it was a good qualifying session. There were a few curveballs out there, weren't there?
One of the best of the season, if not the best qualifying. It was absolutely fantastic. It did not go the way we thought it would, certainly as it started in Q1. I think we all thought, or certainly I did, that this would be maybe a McLaren walkover. Okay, yes, they've blocked out the front row, but the story is so much deeper than that. Fine margins in Formula One are always the case, but in this qualifying under the lights in Abu Dhabi was something sensational to witness. To have, Alpines, Hasses in the mix as well, the Sauber. We've got a great grid for the race. It's going to be a spectacular final race to cap off this year.
Yeah, I think so. Jolyon Palmer, what piqued your interest the most?
I think just how close the field was. It was amazing. The whole field spread by about 6/10 at one point in Q1. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton going out with a bit of bad luck in that session. But on the other end, you had Haas absolutely flying, fourth on the grid for Nico Hülkenberg, who was provisional pole with 30 seconds left on the clock. The field has condensed so much, and it gave us such an unpredictable session.
Lando Norris is on pole position, Harry, and that was important for him.
It certainly was. I mean, you want to cap off the season in style. The championship obviously didn't go his way, but to almost try and make up for that, I think he'll want to make sure he can bring back the Constructors' World title to McLaren for the first time since 1998. That is what is on the line for Sunday's Grand Prix. Right now, the swing is absolutely with McLaren. If it is a straightforward race, they start 1 and 2. If they finish that way, the championship is absolutely theirs. The gap going into the race is 21 points between McLaren and Ferrari have one hand tied behind their back now, because while Carlos Sainz is third, Charles Leclerc had his lap time deleted in Q2, languishing down in 14th, plus he'll have a 10-place grid penalty to boot for having a use of an extra battery, so he'll be right at the back. So he'll be wanting to make sure he converts that pole into a win to see off the season in style and bring back glory to the papaya.
It did look like McLaren were the favourites heading into qualifying, but for so long it was super tight. They didn't really unleash their true pace until the last lap of Q3, really. New tyres on the McLarens, and Piastri was quick, got himself right up there, but Norris put a 2/10 gap between himself and the rest of the field in the end. And they just did the job, didn't they? Under a bit of pressure eased by the fact that Leclerc was already out of the session, and already we knew he was having a 10-place grid penalty anyway, but you still want to put yourself ahead of Sainz. You don't want to have one Ferrari at the front of the field, because it just opens the door for jeopardy if anything goes wrong on either car. But the fact that they've got two McLarens ahead of Sainz in third, it'll let them sleep a little easier, I think, tonight.
Well, let's hear from Lando Norris. I started by asking him if that was part one done.
It was pretty a trickier qualifying than I was hoping for. The car's been incredible all weekend, and we've been flying, but I felt like everyone else took a big step towards us come quali, and Q1 and Q2 we struggled quite a lot. We were not the quickest, and I felt like I had to really put in something special in Q3 to get pole, and that's what I did. So I'm happy. I think we were still the quickest, but we had to work for it, and that makes it always a little bit sweeter.
There's so much expectation, I suppose. Everyone's speaking about 1998, the last time McLaren won the title.
Yeah.
How is the team going to approach tomorrow, I suppose? Do you think you're all going to sit down and try and calm levels down? Do you think you're going to have team orders?
I just think we would do what we normally do. There's been nothing wrong with that, so we'll discuss things tonight, and we'll look into it, and we'll see what is the best thing. Of course, we want it to be as straightforward and as simple as we can make it, especially because we're first and second.
You'd like the most boring race ever, presumably.
We hope so. But I don't expect it to be, because I expect Carlos to fight a lot for his positions, and he obviously wants to put on a good show, and he's going to be risking a lot for that. So hopefully he doesn't risk too much, but at the same time, we're in a good position, and I'm confident we can have a good race.
So that was Lando Norris, who sits on pole, and right beside him, just where they wanted him to be, Oscar Piastri. It's the perfect start for McLaren.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Piastri, though, a couple of tenths off his teammate in the end. So the margin there was probably bigger than Piastri would have liked. And we've spoken about this throughout the weekend already. We're all expecting maybe a little bit more from Oscar Piastri this season. It's only his second season as a Formula One driver. When you've got your teammate in a battle for the championship, when you're then forced to play second fiddle and help him, I'm sure that has an effect on Piastri, and he'll be wanting to seal off this year in style. I wonder if there might be a little bit of fighting from the two McLarens in the early stages. If they can just keep it neat and tidy in the first couple of laps, then a straight drag race down the back straight towards turn 6, Piastri will be gunning for another win to cap off this season, and he'll want to take that win and carry that confidence almost as a marker laid down for next year to go, I'm still in this fight. It's not just Lando Norris.
His one lap pace hasn't really been consistent enough this year. He's been pretty drilled by Norris overall in qualifying, but his racecraft has been very good, and he's going to know that tomorrow. Starting on the front row, he just pipped Sainz and Hülkenberg. In fact, Gasly in 6th is closer to Piastri than Piastri was to Norris. That's how tight the margins were across the field. So Norris building a 2/10 buffer to his teammate was quite big on a day of tiny margins. But we saw in Monza how that can change on the first lap. I think McLaren have to impose some level of orders, though, because
we're not papaya orders again.
Well, they don't care who wins the race. They just don't want the two McLarens charging into the first corner together, because the only thing from a 1-2 that can go wrong right now is that they have a collision, they take each other out. Meanwhile, Sainz starting 3rd would inherit the race lead, and they'd be done from a position where it seems impossible for them to lose. If they collide together, that's kind of the only thing, apart from a double DNF with retirement or something with mechanicals, the two of them being too hungry to race each other is the only thing that could go wrong. So they have to just tell them to be sensible, and the Constructors' Championship will be theirs. Yeah,
could you imagine if they take each other out going into turn 1? They're 21 points ahead.
Harry, don't say it.
I know, I don't want to say it, but they're 21 points ahead. Okay, that margin is not massive. A race win is 25 points, 26 if you get the bonus point. As Jolien says, all it takes is for the two McLarens to trip over themselves, find themselves out of the point, out of the running, and if Sainz could just keep it on the road, bags 25 or 26 points, boom. Hello, Ferrari. First Constructors' title since 2008.
Look, the reality is, the chance of this happening is really remote. And you have got two of the finest racing drivers in the world. You have to trust that they're not going to wipe each other out. But it could happen. And when you're McLaren and you're thinking, we have not won the title in 26 years, almost a full lifetime of Harry Benjamin.
Almost.
Yeah. That's quite a long time, actually. So you're just trying to cover off your bases, and this is a team that have blown a few races on strategy. Norris blew a huge amount of points with a yellow flag infringement in Qatar. Pit stops, things can go wrong where you least expect it, but you don't want to have both of your cars coming to blows. So they've just got to race cleanly on the first lap, keep Sainz at bay, and then surely it'll be theirs.
For our own sakes, Jen, I'm hoping it's nice and simple so the maths doesn't get too complicated.
Well, I asked, obviously, Norris about that, and he gave us that answer. Piastri, what does he think about his chances tomorrow? How's he going to play it?
I'm reasonably happy. I think I would have loved to have been on pole, but I think as a result, P2 is obviously not bad, and for the team, it's obviously important. So I'll take that. I think I've already got some ideas of where the lap slipped away from me a bit, but all in all, can be, I think, pretty happy with that. The last few weekends have been more difficult in terms of qualifying, so it's nice to have a good solid result and give ourselves a good opportunity tomorrow.
Everybody obviously knows the date. 1998 was the last time that McLaren were Constructors' champions. How does it feel being on the verge of knowing that you can fulfill that part of the dream?
It would be very, very special, of course. I think, like you said, it's been a very long time. We've still got a long race ahead of us tomorrow to pull it off. But I think we're obviously in the best spot to try and make it happen. So the pace has been good all weekend. I don't expect that to be different tomorrow. We just need to try and make sure we execute our race as best as possible.
So that was Oscar Piastri. Jolien, how does McLaren deal with the weight of expectation from within, mostly, to try and win this championship?
Well, they've just got to win the race. And they have won 5 races already this year. They know what they're doing. They have the best car this weekend. They start in the front row. They have to keep the lead at the end of the first corner. It's not a very long run to the first corner in Abu Dhabi, so they've got a good chance to do that. And then it's just about marking off Ferrari. They have a quicker car than Carlos Sainz, just behind them. And it's just, being professional, covering your bases. Sport is about dealing with pressure, and it doesn't get better than this for McLaren. They have a faster car, they have the track position. One Ferrari starts from the back. The pressure's not even really on them. They just have to deliver even an average race, and they'll win tomorrow.
Well, as you mentioned, Ferrari having a mixed fortune day. Leclerc with a 10-place grid penalty already for a battery infringement yesterday, then ran wide and lost his track time, so qualified P14 and will start at the back of the grid tomorrow, whereas Carlos Sainz, P3.
Yeah, that's what Carlos Sainz had to do. I think that was the maximum that he could get out of it, especially when they only one car in the game. Track limits caught a few people out in that session, although we did see, for those Perez and Piastri who ran wide at turn 1, they actually got their lap times reinstated at their front left tyre, an absolute millimetre still on the right side of the white line, so they got their laps reinstated. Not so the case for Charles Leclerc, and in the end that was enough to see him out. He would have made it through if he had another lap. It wasn't like he was lacking the pace, but to be honest, the best place he could have started was 11th anyway, even if he had taken pole position. So I think it'll be a nice fight to watch Charles Leclerc come through the field. Maybe a bit of Hamilton might be able to find something. For Sainz though, there is more pressure on him to try and make sure he stays in it, to keep Ferrari in it until lap 58.
Leclerc's just dropped away a bit at the end of the season, hasn't he? It's been surprising to see Sainz quite often now leading the line for Ferrari. He had a decent drive in Qatar last time out, but he was fighting for second in the Drivers' Championship, still Charles Leclerc, and more we're seeing Sainz be the lead contender, and he had the track limits violation, but he was slower than Sainz anyway at the time in Q2, and it's just struggled a little bit for form right at the end of the season. I think if you're Leclerc now, you just have to think, get your head down. You have to expect that something's going to happen to the McLaren drivers. Have a positive attitude, pick off as many as you can in the midfield. It's not that easy in a field that's so finely spread. The margins are just not there. So you've got, again, Haas and Alpine being very quick. No one's an easy pass for Leclerc. The track's not that easy to overtake on either. You've got a few DRS zones to provide opportunity, but he's just got to get his head down, pick up as many points as he can, and hope that it falls in their lap. In reality, it probably won't, but give it your best shot.
Well, I asked Carlos Sainz if he's still keeping the dream alive for Ferrari fans.
I'm trying because it hasn't been an easy weekend from the penalty of Charles, obviously, to missing out in Q3, but then the P3 and being still a couple of tenths of McLaren that we've been all weekend, even though that lap in Q3 was pretty decent, still not good enough, to battle the McLarens, but doesn't mean that we cannot fight again tomorrow, and the points are given tomorrow, and like we happen in Qatar, anything can happen, no? So we'll keep fighting.
And one last win for the time being. Do you feel it? Is it there for you? Because obviously going to Williams is going to be very different. You're still at the Ferrari, and you could still go out there, and if something happens tomorrow, win.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going into tomorrow trying to win the race. I can only tell you that. I'm going to try and win it first for the team, because the team needs a win for the Constructors' Championship, needs every single point we can. And then obviously for myself, because it might be my last chance at winning a race in a long time. So I'm just going to give myself the best possible chance and see what we can do.
Good luck.
Thank you.
So that's your top 3. However, a surprise in P4. And Harry, I don't think many people were expecting Hülkenberg to be there.
Well, I don't know. From the off in practice, the two Haases were looking mighty quick. Yes, I think 4th was maybe a bit beyond the predictions of most. But if anyone at the moment, well, certainly the last 2 seasons for Hülkenberg, can deliver a lap on Saturday, it's the German. I mean, that is magnificent. It's Haas's best ever start in their F1 history as a result of a qualifying for a Grand Prix. If you take Magnussen's pole from the sprint in Sao Paulo a couple of years ago out of it. That's always a dodgy stat that I never like covering off. But magnificent for Haas. They seem to have found a bit of an upturn in form. Magnussen scored points last time out in Qatar. Hulkenberg was quick there as well, but he had a ERS issue in the qualifying, and the race just didn't go his way. So I think Haas are big contenders here. Crucially, they are only one car in Hulkenberg up in fourth. They're in a tight fight with Alpine for sixth place in the constructors. There's only 5 points between them. Alpine currently lead that battle. Gasly's only a couple of spots behind Hulkenberg. So I think we're going to see a nice out-and-out fight between the Haas car and the Alpine car throughout the race tomorrow.
Well, funnily enough, I asked Hulkenberg exactly that. Let's hear what he had to say.
Yeah, better than expected, I think. Car has been strong since lap 1 here yesterday, and we just managed to build on that and preserve that feeling, and personally had a very hooked and a lot of confidence with the car this quali, which is great when you can exploit the limit with the Formula 1 car and high speed corners. So very enjoyable. And yeah, the fourth definitely a surprise. Top 10 I think was always realistic and kind of a must do, because the car was simply too good so far.
Can you describe for the people at home what it feels like to be in this situation where you're competing for so much money, so much pride is on the line between the team championships? Because it's hard to equate it at home, isn't it?
It is, and obviously for every team, in the championship, there's so many people involved, so much energy, work, hours, budget, like you say, goes into it. But that's the beauty about Formula One. It's competitive. It's a fascinating little industry. I'm just happy, how we developed this year and how we carried ourselves as a team, and just want to maximize tomorrow, and then we'll see what we or where we end up.
Do you think you can claw back those 6 points?
I don't know. We'll see.
So that's Nico Hulkenberg. In fifth place, Max Verstappen. Then it was Pierre Gasly, then George Russell. P8 for Fernando Alonso, and then P9 for Valtteri Bottas. He was very emotional when I spoke to him, and he did an outstanding job for Sauber today.
Bravo, Bottas. Sauber's highest start of the season. What a way to cap off his tenure at the Sauber team. And what a way to show to everybody in the Formula One paddock that he's still got it. He hasn't disappeared. He's had a woeful car to deal with this season. And to be honest, in his last 2 seasons. His first year with Alfa Romeo Sauber was all right, but it's really not ended in the best possible way for him. He'll be out on the sidelines, we think, next year. However, Bottas will fight to the bitter end on this one. He'll want some points. I picked up after last time in Qatar, where Joe got the points, hearing Bottas in the interviews, I think Bottas was annoyed that it wasn't him getting Sauber's first points. I think he wants to prove a little bit of a point tomorrow night.
You would be annoyed. Bottas has been consistently ahead of Joe. He's been comfortably ahead of Joe as well today, and he did a fantastic job the whole way through qualifying. Said that was as fast as she goes in Q2, and then found another 10th and a half in Q3 to out-qualify Perez. And when you've done that, and then Joe comes through for the 8th place and gets all the plaudits in Qatar, you're just like, oh, really? I've drilled this guy all season.
People have such short memories.
And then he's getting all the credit. So I think it's only fair that Valtteri gets a good crack at it, especially he was quite unlucky in Qatar with some incident around him. Sauber coming on quite strong at the end of the season, and Bottas with a fantastic qualifying session has a chance to score some points. He's the only permanent driver not to get off the mark this year. Only Logan Sargent is also on 0 points.
Is that why Bottas had to pick up the bill at the drivers' dinner? If you're plumb last out of the current crop, are they the rules?
Surely not. Surely not. The guy's already got no points, and now he's got to pay for everyone's dinner. Brutal.
Look, let's hear from. I didn't.
The biggest
ask
loser
him about
gets
that.
the bill.
We know who's picking up the bill tonight. Then let's hear from Valtteri Bottas.
It went perfectly. I think we executed it really well. Honestly, I had some of the best laps of my life, and it's a nice feeling to be back out there and hitting the targets, and I've missed that feeling.
Your helmet obviously says what next. You spent a bit of the season saying that. Well, what next is a blazing way of qualifying, your last ever qualifying. What are your emotions going into this final race? Not 100% sure of the future?
it's different feeling for sure this weekend. Not knowing quite yet what is next. Hopefully that's next week. But it's strange. It's a weird feeling, and feeling maybe a bit more sensitive, like after the qualifying. A bit emotional actually.
I'm gonna want to hug you.
It's all good. It's a good feeling, but these last couple of weeks I've decided I'm not done yet. I'll find a way to be back.
We hope you are. Honestly, you give us so much joy. Good luck tomorrow with the race. What do you think you can do with the race tomorrow?
Main thing is I give it all I have, and we give it all we have as a team. That's the main thing, and hopefully we can come out with points. It will be good.
So, Valtteri Bottas, life in the old dog yet? He looked and sounded like he knows something that we don't. He's staying here, maybe?
Well, I think if he doesn't have a race seat next year in Formula One, he'll be in the paddock. I will predict he'll be a Mercedes reserve driver as a bit of cover for the year. He left on good terms. His management company is Toto Wolff is part of his management company still, so he's got strong ties there, left there on good terms. But you're absolutely right. There is still a lot of question marks over Sergio Perez in the second Red Bull seat. The rhetoric that is coming out from Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, the big bosses at Red Bull, it sounds like, well, Perez's future, even though he's got a contract signed in his pocket, it's still yet to be determined. There's a big meeting on Monday. Are any of the RB drivers in the junior program good enough or any better than what Perez will deliver? And maybe Bottas has spied an opportunity here as a qualified number 2 driver. He could be a good fit at Red Bull. But then again, that's what we all said about Perez, and look what happened.
True. He starts alongside Perez as well on the grid. Tsunoda, Lawson, then it's Stroll, Leclerc, Magnussen, Albon, Zhou and Hamilton, P18. And he was so unlucky today. Jolien, just explain what happened.
So we're in Q1 and Hamilton was late out. He was the last car on the circuit. He actually only had 4 seconds to try and get a flying lap on the board before the session timed out. Just about crossed the line to start his flying lap. Was on a decent lap. Was looking quick. He's been more comfortable in the car this weekend. Was looking like he'd be comfortably through into Q2 until he trips over Kevin Magnussen in the final sector. Magnussen gets the call in the radio, jumps out of the way. He jumps off the circuit to get out of the way of Hamilton. So worried is he about picking up a penalty, but in doing so, knocks a bollard at the turn 14 left-hander by the hotel, knocks the bollard right into the path of Hamilton, who swings through, collects it underneath his Mercedes and loses a heap of downforce at the final corner and goes out by about a tenth and a half on that lap. Just pure unlucky, I think, for Lewis Hamilton, and it kind of sums up his feelings at this point of the season.
Yeah, Harry, I mean, Mercedes haven't found the pace today, but they could have done, I think. Without that misfortunate happening to Hamilton, he was ahead of Russell all weekend.
He was. Russell, qualified in 7th in the end and was the weaker of the Mercedes, actually, this time around. It's been looking fairly promising on both the long runs and the qualifying simulations for Hamilton. So you're right. I think there was absolutely more time in the bag, and I think he would have made it through to Q3. I don't think he was a contender for pole position or the top 3 positions, but certainly could have maybe had the better of a Hülkenberg, maybe matched Verstappen and found himself in the top 5, which would have been a much better way to end his tenure at Mercedes. But it is a shame. The lights, it really is dwindling with the relationship there. So even though they're all being very positive and it will be emotional, they've shared so much success together, I think both are looking forward to a new chapter in the Mercedes and the Lewis Hamilton story going forward.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't go out with a whimper tomorrow. It feels unbefitting of a 7-time world champion, doesn't it?
It's often the way, though, in these things. Formula 1 doesn't quite always give you the end of the story that you always want. We would love for him to go out with a win, with a podium. Wouldn't that be a magnificent way to end his...
It'd be amazing.
It would be sensational.
Of the word.
But I think, let's see, it's a tough ask going, he qualified 18th. He'll be bumped up a place after Leclerc's penalty. So let's just see. He needs to survive lap 1, first of all, and the carnage that comes from being that far back.
That is true. So, boys, before we go, tell me, what is going to happen tomorrow? What are the headlines going to be when people wake up on Monday morning?
I imagine the big one will be McLaren seal their first Constructors' Championship since 1998. They've got a golden opportunity to do so, and I would expect, I think Norris has this one in his hands, really. He's been actually making better race starts recently. He's got his teammate alongside him, and I think Norris wins and McLaren win.
I think the headline on the front page of the BBC Sport website, Andrew Benson's article, is going to lead with Nico Hülkenberg finally gets F1 podium, McLaren win constructors.
Wouldn't that be something? How many races has he done without a podium? It's the longest.
Well, he's got 228 Grand Prix under his belt, I believe, and has yet to secure a podium in any one of them.
It'll be 227 tomorrow for Hülkenberg.
Starts or Grand Prix entered?
Starts.
Okay. Tomorrow
will be his 227. So I think you've done him dirty there.
I've added one more.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hulk.
And his number is 27. That's
a sign.
Some sort of sign. You can see it in the stars, and the stars are out now. A slither of the moon hangs over the marina, and I think that's us done for qualifying for the year. Let's move it on to the race tomorrow. I think it's going to be exciting. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri lead off from the front row. So will McLaren secure their first Constructors' title since 1998? Join us tomorrow, 1 o'clock, the race gets underway. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.